Hey guys, welcome to A Little Bit of Monica. I'm really excited because in this video you are going to get to see my first couple weeks of January. I ended up getting sick, so things were a little bit slower for me, but I was able to get through a couple of books that I was vlogging along with. However, I also want to show you a couple of inside videos of things that I was experiencing throughout the first couple of weeks, including my in-laws' annual trip to Vermont for snowboarding. So there will be a very fun clip in here of my snowboarding experience, and let's just say I don't have a lot of it, so it's going to be very fun. Just make sure you stay tuned for that portion. But I will also be going over the couple of books that I read earlier on in the month, which is also earlier in this year. So those three books, just quickly, is a YA fantasy, Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. There is a romance, The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson, and another fantasy/fantasy romance, One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. Those are the three books you can expect to hear me talk about in this video. I hope you enjoy this kind of run through of the first couple of weeks of January. I do hope to get into more of a weekly vlog style going forward. However, getting COVID and getting really sick really set me back. So I kind of compiled everything from most of January into this one video. So I hope that you enjoy. Let's roll the tape. Okay, so it's been a long time since I've done a vlog update, and I haven't actually done any updates on what I'm currently working on right now. I've been sick the last couple of days. You can probably still hear it in my voice. It's a little bit nasally. I have been coughing a lot. So I am gonna try to get through this without losing my breath too much, but I'm really excited about what I've been working on the last couple of days, and I've been talking about it a bit, so it's not too surprising that I've been doing it, but I do want to talk a little bit about it because it is something that is very special to me, and I have been reading a book that has been one of my favorite books for the past 12 years, I would say. The first time I ever read this book that I'm about to show you, I was in high school, and I remember making it my entire personality. It was something that I just latched onto so easily. My sister was the one that convinced me to read it in the first place. It is the first book in a series. It's quite a long series, actually, and every single book in the series just makes me feel so at home, at peace. It's my comfort read, and I've been reading it again since I was in high school, and it means so much to me. I recently, within the last couple of months, found out that there was a buddy read that was being planned for it, so I was really excited to be able to participate. Unfortunately, the buddy read fell on the week that I was very, very ill. However, I've still been making the best of it and have been enjoying my time reading this book. And the book I'm talking about is Poison Study by Maria V. Snyder. I am a huge Maria V. Snyder fan, have been for the past 12 plus years, and I'm just so excited that other people are getting to experience this book and her world building ability. I am constantly shocked by her ability to create these fantasy worlds that are so intricate and just beautifully woven. She has really amazing characters, ones that I remember reading them the first time and being like, I wish these people were my friends. I wish I knew them in real life. And I still think that, even when I'm rereading, I still think, gosh, I love these characters. I love what is happening. Even if it's very difficult situations that they're in, I am still thoroughly loving what is happening in these books. I'm like almost exactly halfway through the book right now. I have been annotating along the way, and this has been so much fun. I have only annotated one book before this, which makes me very nervous because I'm still finding my style. I'm still trying to figure out what works for me when I'm annotating, and so I was very nervous to be marking up this book because it is so important to me and I love it so very much. But I have no regrets, like literally none. I am so happy that I've been doing this. I've been going through the book really slowly, one, because I'm sick and have no attention span and have been barely able to read at all over the past couple of days. Like I sit, I read for like 10 minutes and then my mind is wandering and I end up on my phone, and it's because I'm sick, and I know that. It's just unfortunate because I have devoured this entire book in one day on more than one occasion. But this time I am taking my time a lot more. I'm reading slower because of being sick and also because of annotating and wanting to really focus on some of the lines that I remember. Like, there are lines that I could quote from this book already. I could quote them right now to you, and there are others that I couldn't quote, but I remember them, and so I'm able to like highlight them, mark them. I am writing my little like notes in the margins, and I am tabbing all the things that are important, all the things that stand out to me, and being able to do that on a book that I know I love, a series that I know I love, has been so much fun. It's also great because I already kind of know the criteria that I wanted to mark down because I know what's happening. And even knowing the entire book, I'm still partway through being like, oh, I should have made like a color for this, or I should have tried marking these things instead. And so I'm still kind of finding my flow, but I'm really, really happy with what I have right now. And I can't wait to show you a little bit of what I'm doing with my annotating here. So for this read through, because I do plan on reading all of the books at some point down the road, I'm going to read the first one, I'm going to annotate all of them at some point. I decided that I was going to start and do this chronologically. Now this is because I already know the series and it's not a huge deal for me to already know what's happening, know the characters, I know the story. So nothing is a spoiler for me at this point. But Maria V. Snyder came out with a new published short story collection last year in 2023. And this short story collection contains stories about a lot of the really well-beloved characters, but the side characters from the Poison Study series. And so a lot of what's in here can be spoilery because you haven't met the characters yet, or you don't know what the events are that lead up to some of these short stories. However, I know it all. But there are some new stories in here. So I'm really excited to be able to go through this officially. And I'm annotating this as well while I go. But so far I've only read the first one. The very first short story in here is chronologically the very first story in the entire world that she has built here. So I read this one first. I read the very first short story, and honestly, it was really good. It felt very YA when I was reading it, which is put into perspective of all the other books that I've been reading more recently, which are all adult fantasy. So it does feel YA, which is fine. But it was a backstory for a character from Poison Study. So if you read Poison Study and you really like the commander, there is a short story that I would really highly recommend you read. It's the first one in this book, called Diamond Study. And honestly, I really, really liked it. I like diving into the character of the commander a lot. And so that was a lot of fun to get started. But again, this is the chronological order of the books and the short stories. So I started with this one, and it was a new release. It was only published in this book, whereas a lot of her other short stories she had published on her website for free for a long time. So that one I read first, and then I started reading Poison Study. So Poison Study follows Yelena, who is in prison for killing someone, and she is next in line for the noose when she is given the option to become the commander's new food taster. And she says, okay, I'm not a fool. I'm not going to turn down a chance to live a little bit longer. So she is training under Valak, the head of security, to become the poison taster. She's learning all of the poisons, what they do, where they come from, how to identify them. But she's also being targeted because she killed someone who was kind of important. So far, I'm about halfway through, and I'm honestly loving this read through. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars the first time I read it, and every time since then, I feel like I can't give it less than 5 stars because of how it has always made me feel. Now that I have given you way more information about this than you probably asked for, I am going to keep on reading and I'm going to keep on annotating. I didn't actually show you any of the stuff that I have for annotating, so I'm just going to show you a little bit. First, I have the 2 tab colors that I used for the short story collection I have here, and I used a red and a gray pen and a gray highlighter. And then for Poison Study, because this is much more involved, I have 6 tab colors here: a purple, a light green, a dark green, a very pale yellow, a pale pink, and a darker pink. And some of these colors kind of look really similar, but that's okay. I am using 1 highlighter for this. With Ruthless Vows, I used multiple highlighters. I think I had 4 highlighters total. I'm using 1 highlighter in total, and I'm using purple. And there's a reason I'm using purple, but I can't say because you haven't actually learned it yet. And I don't think you learned it in this book at all, which is my own fault. But I affiliate purple with these books a lot, but it also matches the cover because I did try to keep this very aesthetic. So I used purple here. And then all the rest of my colors, I did like greenish and pinkish. And so I did a like world building / plot color. I have one for the romance, which again, this is not like romance heavy, but I still love the romance that does happen. And I want to make notes about it as it goes. So I'm doing that. I have one that is allusions to magic in a world where in this territory that they live in, magic is not allowed. So I have a pen color that is things that represent magic, or even just like information about the magic system that they have in a world where they're not allowed to have magic. I have a color that is dedicated for things that are like oh shit moments, or cliffhangers, or just like things that I'm like, hell yeah girl, you get it. That's what this color is for. It's just like my random outbursts of emotion and things like that. And then I have one final color, which I kind of regret the color and I should have tested it a little bit more, but I have this yellow to represent a duo of characters that I absolutely adore with my whole heart. And they have some of the funniest one-liners, and I just really want to be able to take some notes on those. The yellow doesn't show up super well on the page, but also part of it is also appropriate because in the right lighting, it does show up really well. And I think that's very appropriate for who these characters are. So I'm really happy with how this is going, and I'm just glad that I get to take notes on their particular thing. But those are the colors I'm using. I'm trying to keep it pretty simple as far as like my notes are going to be color coded, but I am just going to highlight everything in one color if I decide to highlight. I am underlining a lot more in this book just because I think the book size is a little smaller, so I'm leaning a little bit more towards underlining than highlighting. But all that to say, I am really having a good time with this, and I am excited to keep going. So I just finished reading my book. This is like my 6th time maybe reading this over the past 10 years at least. I think I read this in like 2011 maybe for the first time, which it came out originally in 2005, and I read it in 2011-ish, maybe 2012, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, it's been at least 10 years since I read this for the first time, and it is my comfort book. It is my comfort series, and there's so much to it, but I love this book so much. And part of it is because I was reading it as a teenager where I would absorb things and make it a part of me, and that's exactly what I did with this book. So I was really excited to be rereading this, and originally Michelle and I wanted to buddy read, and I wanted her to buddy read this with me. I wanted her to experience this book. And I also found out that Mel in her Discord was planning a buddy read as well, so I was super excited to be able to participate in that. It was already happening. I didn't even have to try to convince people, but I was the #1 champion for this book. It made me really scared for what other people are going to say, how other people are going to react. With my reread this time, I decided to annotate. And first of all, look at it. It is so pretty. I'm really happy with how this turned out. All of my tabs. I feel like the second half of the book felt more like I was fully invested in the annotating. I feel like at the beginning I was still finding my groove, figuring out what I wanted to mark down. I had all my colors and stuff established, but as far as like writing in my notes in the side, my responses, when the action really picks up about halfway through is when I really went to town on this book. And the poor spine has seen better days, but I have read it so many times at this point that I'm not surprised that it was struggling a little bit. This book I have given 5 stars every single time I have read it. And this time, I think I am maintaining my 5 stars. I can wiggle down to like 4.5 maybe, just because as an adult who has also read a lot of other fantasy books since experiencing this for the first, second, third, or fourth time, I feel like I can see where the critiques can come from. I see more of the flaws, the minor plot holes, and things like that. Honestly, this book was doing everything for me that it has done every other time I've read it. The scenes that hit, they hit hard, and the scenes that make me kick my feet, I was kicking my feet. I was having the best time because this is a comfort read. Being sick and reading my comfort book felt so good because I knew it was happening. I wasn't stressed. I mean, I was stressed because lots of stressful things happen, but I knew it was coming. I could sit, I could be comforted. These characters mean everything to me. Yelena's the main character. Valak is the sexy, broody assassin character. and they have this found family element with two of the guards that you meet part of the way through the story, Ari and Janko. Ari and Janko are the two characters that when I was in high school, I wanted them to be my actual friends. Like, I wished I had an Ari and Janko in my life, and to this day I still do. I read it again and I made so many notes in here being like, I love them. I can't tell you how many times I wrote, I love him, I love them. It was a lot. Like, I lost track. There were so many. I literally had an entire tab dedicated to that duo because I love them so much, and the friendship that they bring to the table, the protectiveness they have, but the playfulness that they bring as well. They're spectacular. And so reading about those characters just made me feel so comforted and happy. And oh my gosh, I just love this book. I could literally go on forever. I really hope that if you watch this and it sounds like something you would be interested in and you want to give it a shot, I really highly encourage it. I know a lot of people who really enjoyed it and just said, you know, it's more of the YA taste. So if you have a younger YA taste, which is perfectly fine because I ate this up again and loved it with my whole heart, I really recommend it. The author in general, anything that she has written, I absolutely love, and I have a whole shelf dedicated to her. So I absolutely will recommend this book to everyone. I just want other people to experience it too. This is my first like actual vlog of this trip because I've been with my in-laws a lot, and I just finished my daily one trip down because I'm not great. Sorry for the shakiness. These boots are killer. So basically my first year of learning, I learned on like the bunny slopes for beginners, and then I very quickly got on the ski lift, despite probably most people's recommendations, but I did it anyway, and I was fine. And I made it down with quite a few injuries. And by injuries, I mean soreness and some bruised body parts. Now this is my third year actually snowboarding. So there's a like, I don't know, not beginner, but like intermediate trail that I started doing a couple years ago. And I do that basically once a day. So today I just finished up my daily one run down the trail and I didn't die. So please enjoy this footage of me not dying. So as is tradition, I forgot to vlog at the beginning before I started this book, but it's never too late to start. So I'm about 100 pages into The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This is this is an interesting romance choice for me to be reading. If I had to predict what kind of a book I would end up loving, this is not the one. However, I am 100 pages in and having a really good time, which is like, I don't know, is that concerning? Or is it just really great for me? Honestly, either way, this is a shifter romance. So they are two wolf shifters, and they are obviously going to be fake dating. It's my favorite trope. Fake dating is literally so fun. It always ends in like so much drama, and I can't get enough of the fake dating trope. Honestly, I genuinely think it is my favorite trope in a romance. And this one is so funny because Mackenzie and Noah both work at the same hospital, so they are co-workers, but Mackenzie needs a boyfriend to get her grandmother off her back, but Noah needs a mate to get the board at the hospital off his back for being an unmated alpha. So the two decide to strike up a deal, and they are going to fake date, because obviously being like a mate is a much bigger deal. And so for him, it's gotta be real. Like, it's gotta be a fake mate. And it's so dramatic. And they are obviously in over their heads, but it is such a good time. I am really enjoying the characters. I think both of them are really good. I usually end up hating one of the characters that I read in a romance, and honestly, I don't hate either of them. I think they're both well written. I think that the banter is good. I think the chemistry is building. I think it's hard sometimes in romances to get the chemistry right and like paced correctly. And I do think it's going really well here. So about 100 pages in, and I'm having a really, really good time. I'm buddy reading this with Michelle, and I think there may be one or two other people who have joined in with us. And I'm just really enjoying, one, the experience of buddy reading because it's one of my favorite things, but two, this book. This book is better than I could have expected, given that it's a shifter romance, and those just kind of intimidate me. However, this is not the first one that I've read, and if the trajectory is going to stay consistent with where it is right now, this will not be the only one that I've loved. So I don't know what that says about me, but I'm having the best time. I will give you an update when I am further through the book. Okay, so I realized that I forgot to give my update on the previous book. So before I get into the next book that I'm going to be reading, let me tell you about The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson and what I thought of this. Oh my goodness, I gave this book 5 stars. I loved it from start to finish. I found myself not wanting to put the book down because it was interesting, and I really wanted to know what was going to happen with some of the situations that they found themselves in. So I thought this was really, really interesting. I've said a couple of times over the last couple of days that reading and enjoying this book feels out of character for me, but you know what? I've had the self-realization that this is in character for me now. It's a rom-com, but it's a shifter romance smut, and it's not the first one that I've loved. So I think it's officially in character for me, and I can't really put a finger on exactly what about it I love that makes it in character now, but just in general, I feel like romance books have been really working for me a lot lately, and that makes me really happy. However, I have found some that I really, really didn't like, but this is not one of them. This one I loved so much. So let me tell you some of the things that I liked the most. The characters. I loved Noah and Mackenzie. I thought they were well written. I thought that they had really strong personalities. I loved their confidence and their jobs, which, like, the workplace setting was amazing. They are both doctors. They both are good at what they do. They know they're good at what they do, and they have this natural confidence to them that they carry themselves really well, and I loved that. But also the fake mate. It's fake dating trope, and I honestly think it's my favorite trope. If not my very favorite, it is one of my favorites, and this one did not let me down at all. I loved the chemistry that they had. I feel like the buildup worked really well because there is the back and forth debate over, are these my feelings or is this biology that's telling me I'm supposed to feel this way? And they have to kind of work through those emotions and the inner battle, which I really appreciate. One of the things that I disliked the most about this book was how much smut there was. There were so many sex scenes, and also they were so long. There was a period in like the middle of the book. It was like a 20-page section that was just straight smut nonstop for 20 pages. That's a lot. That's a lot for me. I don't need smut in my books. I don't particularly look forward to that kind of a scene and like reading in it and sitting in it. And so for it to go on for 20 pages was a lot, but there were some really good conversations that happened for like half a page or a full page in the middle. So I'm like, I don't want to skip it. I don't want to miss some of the meaningful things that can happen in the middle, but also it was a lot. Like there was a lot in this book. But that being said, I think that it was tastefully written. I think a lot of the smut scenes were written well, and I still like enjoyed reading them. I just wish they weren't so long and so frequent. So that's like my biggest complaint about this book. And honestly, it's really my only complaint, because as most books have a third act breakup, I can't be mad about what happened in this one. I think that this story made sense. I think the decisions that they made sense. And although I'm screaming wanting them to resolve their issues more healthily, I do think that the way that this kind of wrapped up worked really well, and I really enjoyed it. I also think one of the strongest things that I noticed about this book, more so than some of the other romances I've read, is there were a lot of really strongly worded and, I don't know, like honestly inspiring types of quotes that happened. I found myself pausing multiple times to just appreciate like, wow, that was a really well written line. And a lot of times it was from a side character talking to one of the main two and giving them advice or talking to them about their feelings. And some of the things that were said, I just feel like they were worded really, really well. And obviously there's going to be those little like nuggets in every romance where somebody has something super wise to say that's going to make someone have this huge self-realization that helps them solve all their problems. However, I do feel like in this book they stood out more and I noticed them a lot more, and that just made me really happy being able to pinpoint some of these more meaningful statements. Like, I know there was one specific quote that really stood out to me, and it was Noah talking to his mom, and I really liked their relationship in particular, but also here's what she said that like really stood out to me. And it's, you know, it's a very classic thing to be said in a romance, but for some reason the way it was worded here just like sounded really nice. She's talking to him about trying to like realize his true feelings, and so she's talking about love, and she says, "It's terrifying and there are no guarantees. We don't fall in love because it's a sure thing. We fall in love because our hearts don't speak the same language as our brains. Your heart doesn't have that little voice that worries about what ifs. It sees something good and it goes all in. Sometimes you just have to listen to your heart more than your head." I loved that. Like, it's not this, you know, mind-bending, never-before-seen idea about love, but the way that it was portrayed in that statement, I don't know, something just stood out to me about that, and I took a picture of it on my phone. I didn't annotate this book, but I really loved that line, so I took a picture of it so that I can write it down and remember it, because it's just really cute. And there was one later on in the book that I honestly have no idea where it was at this point. I took a picture of that one too, and I'll have to go back and find it, but I just really, really liked that there were some of those snippets that you could get a line that just was really wise or well worded, and I really appreciated that. So that just helped me love this book even more, and I'm so happy that I read this. Buddy reading it with Michelle is also so fun because we get to our stopping point and then we just spew all of our thoughts and, you know, freak out over how much we're loving it or hating it, whatever we do, but we both ended up loving this, and that makes me so happy. And now the next book that I'm going to be reading, again, this is my honestly eternal buddy reading with Michelle. Our next book that we have is timing wise, because we have them from Libby and they both expire in like a couple of days, so we have to finish this really soon before the Libby holds expire. But it is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This book I feel like has been talked about a lot. I think it's been hyped a lot, and I honestly don't know a whole lot about it other than it's fantasy. I'm not sure if it's fantasy romance or not, but it's fantasy and I'm really excited to give this a shot. There is a second book in the, I think it's a duology, but there is at least one sequel, and I am excited to hopefully get to that if I end up liking this one a lot. I'm gonna be honest, even reading the description on the back, I'm not sure that my brain is fully wrapping around exactly what this book is going to be about. So I will try to give you more of like a mini synopsis once I get into it a little bit. We're reading 100 to 150 pages a day just so we can get through it a little bit quicker. And so once I get through the first section, I'll try to come back with some more idea of what this book is going to be about. But I'm really excited. I'm listening to this on audio and with the physical, and I'm excited to dive in and see what all the hype is for this. Okay, as promised, I am here for my first 150 page update on what One Dark Window is about. Now I kind of have an idea of what's going on in the story. Basically, the story follows Elspeth Spindle. That is a mouthful. I could not say that 5 times fast. Like, don't even ask me. Anyway, so this follows this character who, she basically, you find out very early on that she had an infection when she was very young, and essentially anyone who has this infection typically gains magic from it, and I believe they're killed. Like, it's something that once you have the infection, you know, they get rid of you, they kill you. And so the fact that she was hidden away while she had the infection and she lived through it and she didn't get magic from it, like, you know, she was able to be hidden because the things that typically happen from the infection didn't happen to her, I guess. So anyway, she was hidden away. Nobody knows that she was infected except for like the people she lives with, and she has this voice in her head, a spirit called the Nightmare, and he basically helps her like make decisions, tells her what to do, especially when she gets in danger. Like, that's when it really kicks in. And so she has this nightmare in her head ever since she was young, when she touched one of the cards that, like, okay, this story, like, a lot of the magic and like abilities come from a set of Providence cards, and these cards have different levels. It kind of reminded me of like the 12 Days of Christmas. They were like 12 of this type of card and 11 of this type of card, and they're like all spread out throughout, you know, the community. Everybody, you know, they're sought after cards. So the infection, this mist, I think, that's like around the town, I'm not quite sure exactly how all this works, but anyway, this like infection is in relation to these cards, and the only way to get rid of the infection is to have one of each card, and by doing that the king would have the power to rid the world of the infection. Like I said, it's kind of like the 12 Days of Christmas, like 12 of one card, 11 of another. When you get all the way down, there's only 2 cards of the one level, and there's only 1 card of, I forget what it's called, the twin something, I don't know. There's literally like 1 card, which means whoever has that card holds the power of whether or not the infection gets cured or not. And as of right now, like, they don't know where this card is. They're trying to locate it. And so a lot of the story is going to revolve around characters in the story tracking down these cards, especially the one that's like, it's the only one of its kind, then they need to find it. So it's a very interesting story so far. It's not super fast paced, but I do feel like there was no point where I was bored. I was learning a lot about the world. I feel like this has a lot of world building, and even as I'm describing it, I feel like there's a lot that I still don't quite understand about what's happening, but it's the type of thing that I think I'm gonna figure it out as we go, but my brain just is like, you know, taking a little longer to catch up. I am still kind of recovering from COVID, so sometimes I think that like COVID brain is in there just a little bit, but either way, I am really fascinated with the world. I think the setup of the Providence cards and the way that like that gives people an ability to do certain things like read a mind or control a mind or change your physical appearance, things like that, and it's given to you with the power of the card. But it's just like a really fascinating concept. I, hadn't really thought about this kind of a thing before. So it's really interesting, and I'm excited to see where the rest of the story is going to go and kind of see who's going to manage to get the full set of cards and see if they're going to be able to cure the infection. Because it's just like a really interesting premise. And I think that the journey that these characters are going to go on is going to be really interesting. So I'm excited to see where the rest of the story goes, and I will check in later once I have read a little bit more in this book. Okay, so I just finished reading One Dark Window, and I have so many thoughts. I'm actually still kind of trying to figure out exactly where I want to land on my rating for this book, but let me tell you what I thought of the last portion of the book. I forgot to give an update like 2/3 of the way through, so this is going to be kind of like the whole second half of the book. But essentially, I feel like this book, it took a little bit for me to get into it, but once I was into it, I was fully invested, and I am so fascinated by the way that magic works in this book, the way that magic is attached to these Providence cards, and touching or like tapping the card lets you use the magic that it has, and the way that like there's some that are more rare than others. I just think this whole concept is so interesting, and the way that they're chasing these cards in order to rid the world of this mist is like so freaking cool. But then beyond that, it's the intricacies of the characters is really interesting as well. So Elspeth is the main character, and I'm not even gonna say her full name because like her first and last name gave me enough trouble the last time I tried. But Elspeth is a really complicated character, and I think that that's really evident in the way that the monster is in her mind, which like it from reading the description. So like the monster in her mind is not even a spoiler, but it feels like it should be. But anyway, so having this monster in her mind where its voice is heard when she is in trouble or having difficulty understanding things, making decisions, it's there telling her that it's trying to protect her, to help her. And you begin to understand throughout the story what that means and the toll that that can take, because the main theme of this story and the way magic works is nothing is free. They say that so many times. Nothing in the world is free. No magic is free. If you take one thing, you have to give something. And this give and take is such an interesting concept, and you see it play out in multiple different ways throughout the story, which I think is great. But especially with Elspeth and her mind and the way that this monster is there, but she's beginning to understand and unravel the truths that have been with her most of her life, but she didn't really understand them. And so I think this journey of understanding her own situation is really interesting. But then we bring in Raven, and like I didn't know how I would feel about Raven and Elspeth, their relationship, the romance that you can kind of tell is coming, but I ended up really liking them. I think they challenge each other a lot. They do not necessarily just take the easy road on situations. They know that they're each keeping secrets from the other, but have to come to a place where they can trust each other with their secrets. And honestly, I really liked being able to watch that unfold. And I think I ended up, throughout the whole story, I really ended up falling in love with their relationship. And I think that what they offer is really precious. And so I really loved the two of them. I think where we leave off at the end of this book, because there is a sequel, and leaving off from this book feels like I don't know what's gonna happen, and I'm really terrified, but I really liked the way that they got to unfold throughout the story. But because I'm talking about the ending, now I have to talk about the ending, because oh my gosh. Okay, here is how the ending plays into my rating of this book. I feel like throughout the whole story, this was trending at like a solid 4-star read, okay? I was really enjoying it, and enjoying it more than a 3-star read. Like it was a 4-star, like I was having a good time. It took me a little bit to get into the world building just because there was so much to understand about the magic and how it works with these Providence cards, but I was really enjoying it, having a great time. And then I get to the end, and when I say the end, I mean like the last 5 to 10% of the book, like the end. And there's now a part of me that wants to give it 5 stars because I loved the ending. I thought it was incredible. It was intense. It was like fast paced, but like not too fast. Like it was an appropriate pace, but like it felt like a very, it was a lot happening, and it's unfolding very rapidly. And where we leave off, in order to transition into the second book, like I'm nervous. I'm like so eager to find out what's gonna happen, because leaving off here, Like, I'm glad I read this after the second one's out because I need to read the next one. It's it was like such an intense ending that like I genuinely feel like I could give it 5 stars because of the ending. I haven't decided yet. Like, for me, this book sits at a solid 4.5 stars. The problem is when I go to Goodreads, I do have to decide if it's going to be 4 or 5, and I just don't know because like the majority of the book was 4 stars for me, but that ending just like took me by surprise. And I'm excited to move on to the second book because I really feel like I need to know what happens next. Like, that is how I know that this book was so good, is because I finished and immediately like I want to keep going. I want to know where this is going to go based on where we left off. So that about wraps things up for this video. I kind of feel like this is a little bit chaotic, but for January, my schedule ended up being really weird because I got sick and I wasn't reading a whole lot, and that kind of set me back a little bit. So I read less books than I wanted to so far in January, but I'm really happy with the ones that I did because they were all really solid reads, and I just feel like I can't complain when the majority of my books were 5 stars. Actually, so far in January, I don't think I've rated anything less than 4 stars. So that is a successful year so far. That is everything for today. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, because clearly I loved them and I hope other people do too. But if you haven't read them yet, please let me know if you decide to pick it up, because I will be so eager to hear what your thoughts are if you are able to give these books a try. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that if you want to stick around and catch some of my future videos, you'll hit that subscribe button and it'll keep you up to date on all of the videos that I have coming out. I'm really excited for the things that are coming for 2024. I hope that I will see you in my next video. Bye!